Hello, and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. Hi, I ingested a lot of theater this week, and I'm excited to talk about it. Hi, I'm Trey, and I'm joined by someone who also enjoys the theater of photography, Emily. Hi, Emily.
Wow, you are clever. Yeah. Also, I like that you ate the theater.
I did. It was quite tasty. Tasted a little bit like oregano with just a little bit of paprika.
Interesting combo.
Yeah, but we wound up going. Me and a bunch of coworkers went to go see Violet at the local theater here.
Oh, cool.
Really great show. I've never actually seen it in person. I've only listened to the soundtrack from the Broadway production with Sutton Foster. Great, makes me cry. And then Star Kid actually released their production of Cinderella's Castle to YouTube this weekend after having it for a year to themselves. And I am quite obsessed. It's a very unique take on the Cinderella fairy tale.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really fun. So, highly recommend it. It's a great production, and it did everything that Andrew Lloyd Webber's Bad Cinderella couldn't do. And that's some big shade. Anyway, moving right along.
Wow. You don't usually go there on this show, but here we are.
I did not like Bad Cinderella for a lot of reasons. But we will dive into that another time. Maybe a great video
We'll
for
do
our
a whole show.
Patreon.
We're gonna do a whole bonus episode about that. Trey throwing shade at all of the productions he doesn't like.
It's really just like specific things. We can dive into my personal opinion later on. What I'm really excited about is to talk to our guest today and learn about the magic of theater through our guest today. So, Emily, would you do us the
Yeah.
honor of introducing our guest?
Absolutely. Today we have fight and intimacy coordinator David Reed with us. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you so much.
We are so excited to talk to you. We've never had anybody quite like you on the show, and we have questions. Also, we love this Transformers collection behind you on the wall. Tell us
Uh,
about that.
it's something I always loved growing up. My brothers and I kind of collected our own toys, and my other two brothers were always GI Joe fans, and I tended to favor the the engineering and the that went into all the Transformers. So I have the collection of my dreams from my youth. So
So cool. I feel a little bit like the odd person out here because Trey has his collection. Well, bookcases behind us, but
there you go.
you guys have like collectibles and I have books. Maybe one day I'll dive into this world of yours.
It's a You have a great collection of books, and so you should be proud of that. But also, I feel a little bad because I felt like I made David, like I bullied him into showing his collection of things.
I was
It was worth it.
inspired.
I love the rebrand, inspired.
We're all geeks here. We're just one big family. You belong. So how in the world does one get into being because this is such a cool title, a fight and intimacy coordinator or
Uh,
choreographer? Which do you do?
well, I in terms of the title itself, the intimacy coordinator tends to be utilized more for film, and then for live theater, we tend to use intimacy director and fight director. As far as how one gets into this, I kind of fell backwards into it, like every good thing in life. I didn't know anything about this coming out of college, and really kind of decided that I wanted to pursue additional learning because I didn't want to get a real job. So I decided to go to grad school entirely for that reason. And I grew up in Kansas and knew that the only qualification for grad school for me was it had to be out of the state. So I ended up really just kind of stumbling upon one of the uh, premier training institutions for stage combat in the country uh, on a whim. I didn't know anything about it and didn't make the decision. I would love to say that I had the foresight and wherewithal to make a decision based off of copious amounts of research, but I would absolutely be lying to you. So I decided Louisiana Tech, which is where I got my master's degree from, was the school of choice, and really because it was out of the state of Kansas. And then as I got there, uh, I slowly started to realize what I had fallen into, and that was a program that did a really exceptional job of not only teaching the basic skills of that, but also teaching people how to utilize those basic skills as a tool for storytelling, which is ultimately what the job of an intimacy director or a fight director really is about weaving techniques into the production so that we can keep the actors safe, but also adhere to the director's vision for the story.
Fascinating. I like that. He just wanted to get out of Dodge and anywhere, anywhere but there.
Now, can I clarify? Because I've heard the term intimacy coordinator and fight choreographer. When you're talking about that, what all kind of what type of scenes are you getting involved with? Is it just like the fight choreography, or is it in the quieter moments when characters are supposed to be having a more intimate time on stage? I'm a little kind of in the mud as like where that clarification lies.
For sure. It for fight choreography, it's a little more cut and dry, seemingly. Um, Anytime there is a violent act that occurs on stage, a fight director can be of service, whether that is something uh, as ordinary as a slap in a scene, or really where I tend to see the most injuries is from people falling down. Right. So even something as simple as hitting the stage, if you're going to be doing that action, 8 times a week, twice on Saturdays and Sundays, if you are causing actual damage to yourself, it's only a matter of time until that compounds into something much more serious. And if you're not taking care of your body will absolutely make sure that it shuts down until you can take care of it properly. So as far as fight direction is concerned, I really wish that everything I did was great big sword fights and Three Musketeers and Romeo and Juliet. But actually, in all actuality, a lot of theaters don't do those productions, especially now because large scale fighting shows tend to be more expensive because of the hiring of trained actors that know how to do those things, the hiring of a number of trained actors to do those things. To make a mass battle on stage, you need to have a mass of people. So that is a little more cost prohibitive. And then ultimately, when you look at equipment, purchasing or renting the swords for something like that can also be a little cost prohibitive. So ultimately, what I do a lot of is unarmed violence, knife work, and then falling down. As far as intimacy work is concerned, this is really a new discipline, and there's a lot of, I would say, confusion and misconception of what it is. Certainly, when people hear that title and when they think about it in terms of cinema or theater, they generally would think about any moment of really visceral physical contact on stage. So big stage kisses, simulated sex on stage. But Emily, you're right in pointing out that those are examples of intimacy, but also the way in which we share space with any human being is really an intimate moment and an intimate act, and that ability to showcase what our relationships are based off the intimacy that we show between people is that's also something that the intimacy director is in charge of and can help the storytelling in a production with.
That's a great clarification. So why, this might be a bigger question than that I might have to do more research on, but why is it something that's only come to light within the last couple of years? Why is this not something that's been part of theater and media more and more often? I feel like I just asked a really, really big question.
I thought about that too. Like, well,
It is a big question, and there is a large historical backing or background behind this, really dating before Me Too, but Me Too movement being a large catalyst that kind of drew this to the forefront. I think a lot of it, I'll talk about why I think things are, but this is just from my perception as someone that was working in the business before intimacy direction and after intimacy direction. I really think beforehand it kind of fell to the fight choreographer or the movement specialist, because if you've got someone that's kissing on stage, it's kind of the same mechanics of someone that would be punching on stage, right? We're still talking about distance. If we are going to have a conversation, it's really easy to talk to somebody about this, but it's not. And I think the other side of that was also but it's just a kiss, right? We're just kissing on stage. It's not a big deal. In the same way that a lot of times when I will enter the space as a fight choreographer, I'll hear, well, it's just a slap. And usually it's just a slap comes from someone that doesn't have to be involved with either giving or receiving the slap. So the same conversation usually comes from the director or people that a producer in the space that aren't actually the ones engaged in the intimate act as well. So it's just a kiss, it's just a slap, it's just a fall. Those are all kind of ways to diminish what the action is, and really, I guess, give the performers a complex about what it is they're doing, or kind of minimize any feelings that they might be having about or anxiety that they might be having about a particular moment on stage. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do away with when we walk into a space like that, is to, whether it is fighting or whether it is intimacy, putting the performers in the space at ease with what it is that they're doing, and giving them the skills to be able to communicate with one another.
Yeah. Well, and to say it's just a kiss or it's just a slap, I can think of, if you think of all the productions you've seen, if there's a kiss in it, you might remember it. These are memorable moments you're talking about.
Right.
There's slaps that are memorable moments. And, I believe doing that right makes sense.
You would think so. And it really does become, you're right. Those are our iconic moments, and taking an opportunity to make sure that the story is being told as good as it can possibly be told, but also at the same time keeping the performers in that moment as safe as you possibly can. And I don't mean, well, I do mean physically safe, but I also mean safe in a term where they're not having to actively consider the implications of the moment that they are doing while they are doing it, right? So that all has been done in the rehearsal process. They trust the process. They trust their scene partner. They have adequately rehearsed this. They know exactly what all the variables are, and those have all been solved for in a way that once you get to the performance, because there's already so many variables in live theater, those moments that could cause anxiety or that could really turn the direction or turn the entire reception of the direction or of the show, those have all been taken care of and planned in such a way where the performers can just sit back and do their art.
Well said. That was
Yeah.
so well said.
Something for me, like from what you said about almost cheapening the moment or diminishing that, from an actor's standpoint, it makes me like almost rethink what my character, because I might have thought of this kiss or this slap as being like a pinnacle moment, and to cheapen it to something kind of almost ruins what character development that I've wanted that character to go through in that particular moment.
Absolutely. And I think that what you just pointed out is a really important part of this. We're working in conjunction with the director, whether it is a fight direction, whether it is intimacy direction. We have to make sure that we're doing our best to tell the director's story and not our own. So the director should at that point have done copious amounts of analysis on the script and really have an understanding of what story they are trying to tell and what they want to get across to the audience. My job in that situation isn't to walk in with my own reading of that particular scene or to impose my will upon what the director wants. It's to serve the director's vision, and the performers are a giant part of that. So I need to make sure that I am serving the performers in their ability to be able to conduct their art as in a well rehearsed and a safe manner, while also serving the director's vision of the production, so that you're not watching the director's play and then when it gets to my bits, you're watching my fight, and then now we're back to the director's play again. And that takes some time to be able to weave your work into someone else's story.
I love that you're approaching it from this collaborative process and not like you're trying to mash two different styles together. Have you ever been part of a production or part of a collaboration where that's what the director wanted? Was this mashup of styles where it may not have fit stylistically, but they were going for something interesting or unexpected?
Yeah, I think in general, when you look at theater, it has to be a little more collaborative. If you look at a symphony, right, their collaboration happens in the moment when they were playing, and they might get together. Hopefully they do, but they might get together to rehearse prior to, but certainly not from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. every night. A month or a month and a half prior to the show opens. And that's kind of what our academic theater schedule is. Generally speaking, for a more professional environment, a 2-week rehearsal run for about 8 hours a day. That's not what you are getting into for a symphony. That's not generally what you're getting into for visual art, right? So the collaboration is different as you move across different art forms. And really with theater, it's kind of in place as that from the very beginning of the process, right? We're having conversations, design conversations from the get-go, trying to figure out what visually the director wants what we want to see on stage, how that integrates with the performers on stage. So even if we're talking about a director that is actively trying to pursue this kind of cacophony of design elements, that's pretty clear from the beginning of the process, because we're having design conversations 9 months out from the actual opening of the
Mm.
production. So we're working on this well in advance. And then the design choices will run through multiple iterations. So we'll have an opportunity for, for scenic design to kind of pop up inspiration boards and then sketches, and moving through all of the variations. We don't really kind of land where we start. We take that 9-month journey in preparation of.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The things that for me stick out where it's a clashing of styles, I think, are more cinematic. Where, like, I think to movies like Marie Antoinette, where you have very stylistic photography throughout, but then you get this very anachronistic soundtrack that's playing over top of it, or something like and Juliet, where you have a little bit more Shakespearean text sometimes, and then this very pop soundtrack that's happening, and it's this clashing of styles together that somehow cohesively makes up a story.
Yeah.
Um, so it's those types of things that make me start to think through, like, what does a cacophony of different styles start to sound like?
Yeah, the examples that I can remember from my work tend to either be really more contemporary theater, where they are specifically utilizing something that feels out of place or that is anachronistic, because that proves the point, or it is modern adaptations of Shakespeare. And those are sometimes far less successful, I think, than the director's original idea for it is. I think that there might be a really great concept that's there, but a lot of times from concept to realization isn't as successful as one might like.
And of the productions you've done, what are some of your favorites, and what makes them your favorite?
I really tend to think it's the story that's being told. I teach at a university, and I'm a certified teacher through the Society of American Fight Directors. Mm-hmm. So I have an opportunity to do what's called a skills proficiency test. Okay. So when I teach students, they have the opportunity to test in whatever weapon style we're learning. So I get to play and have fun and do really cool stuff in those scenes, and kind of use that as a testing ground for something that I might want to put on stage later. But ultimately, for me, the really fun moments are one, the moments that work on stage. So if it tells the story that the director wants to see, and then the other ones are anytime when I am watching and the audience has a vocal reaction to a particular moment on stage, right? So you'll hear the slap and the audience goes, "Ooh!"
Yeah.
Those sort of moments that, like, that's an immediate critique, an immediate positive critique of the work, and I can bank those little moments and go, "That, all right, that worked."
Very nice. Trey's smiling too. Is that relatable to some degree, Trey?
Oh, yeah. Like, when you deliver a line or you reveal a plot detail to the audience that they weren't necessarily expecting, or just a really good line delivery, and you get a yes, or you get that that one person in the back that's been dead silent the entire time, and they're like, there's nothing better. It is so good.
I'll say it also works on the other side, going back to Falling. I cannot count the number of times that I have sat in a house and watched someone on stage in a moment of great passion cry out to the heavens and then fall to their knees. And almost across the board, the number of sound reactions that I hear in the audience are the right. And it's not a moment of compassion for the character. It's a moment of fear for the actor.
Oh,
The exact opposite that you want, right? Everybody has made that fall before and is going, oh, their knees, that's going to hurt. And not considering that that is a really deep and emotional moment for that particular character.
I see. There's
The other way.
a difference. There's a line.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you want the audience to be able to stay with the story and with the character, not suddenly realize they're still sitting in a seat watching an actor.
Yeah, that's a moment that pulls you out, and it's almost impossible to get an audience back after that. With what Trey was describing with the line reading or the slap on stage, that sort of ooh moment, that's the audience being so committed to the story that they're seeing on stage that they're drawn into it and they are comfortable enough to make a vocal reaction to that thing. The other one is I couldn't stop how uncomfortable I was and I had to make some sort of vocal response so that I could ease my own tension.
Well said.
Yeah, pretty accurate.
I love the way that you're talking about everything from a storytelling component. So I'm curious, like, what kind of research do you have to do as a fight coordinator when you walk into a particular production?
Okay, I'm gonna offend some people here.
Nah.
Well, this is like I've got colleagues that are very, 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 very convinced that a historical background and a historical understanding of each of the weapon styles that we are researching is crucial to the ability to be able to tell these stories effectively.
I see.
And then I watch cinema that is historically based, and I watch examples of combat that is on stage in a historical work that has nothing to do with any type of sword fighting that has ever historically existed. It's about the flash and trash of it. So that's where I tend to be. I do believe that having an understanding and a knowledge of the historical aspects of fencing, whether that's Eastern martial arts styles or Western fencing manuals, I think those are all really wonderful things that are helpful to be able to help you craft the story on stage. But I don't know that anybody that's sitting out in the house is going to be able to cue in on whether or not this was a historically accurate longsword move. I just don't think that they're going to cue in on that. And in addition to that, I would also say that martial arts is designed to be as efficient as humanly possible. And in it being as efficient as humanly possible, it can move very quickly to a point where people miss it on stage and we lose the story that we're trying to tell because it is so efficient and so fast and so very lethal. There's a reason it was successful enough to be codified into a martial art. If we do it that fast on stage, the audience doesn't follow the story.
Right.
So I tend to lean in towards the idea of like I want to entertain the audience. I don't necessarily want to teach them a historical fencing lesson.
Yeah, like I feel like this is a little reductionist, but it's the rule of cool. Like, you want it to look nice on stage, but you want it to read from 800 seats back.
Yeah. Well, and you also have to think about like where our understanding of this comes from. The average human being has no reason to pick up a sword and go fighting. That's just, it's not part of our day-to-day life, for better or worse. It's just not something that we have to deal with or interact with.
Correct.
And if you look, cinema is a really great place to be able to see this because there's lasting images of that. If you look at the hand-to-hand combat in the westerns of the 60s and 70s, and then compare that to like the mega action films of the 80s and early 90s, and then if you start moving forward to look at the Mission Impossible films of the early 2000s, so our aughts. And if you look into like the Bourne Identity, shaky cam stuff that they were doing in the early 2000s, versus like the long Daredevil hallway fight, individual single shot hallway fight from the first season of Netflix Daredevil. If you look at all of those stylistically are drastically different and informed by what our audience sees as violence, right? So if you look at those ones from the 60s and 70s, most of our interaction with violence was boxing. So it was
A lot of punching.
boxing.
Yeah.
That's it. And they were big, swooping John Wayne punches that are terribly inefficient, but really look like he's the hero of that. If you start moving towards a lot of what we're seeing now, it's mixed martial arts. It's JJ and it's submissions and it's arm locks and there's a lot of things in there. It's all groundwork, right? And that's because of what our communal understanding of violence is. So when we look at what our audience knows as violence, they're a pretty savvy audience when it comes to unarmed violence because they have a lot of examples to see unarmed violence, and they are less savvy when it comes to sword violence because when it comes to sword play, we have things like Game of Thrones, which is a lovely series and very cool, but the amount of times they spun in almost every single fight is just kind of silly. So
I'm going to go back and watch it again now.
There's a lot of spins in there, and if you think about that, pointing your back at a person that has a sword is probably one of the worst things that you could do.
Oh, yeah.
But it looks great.
I wouldn't even think to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when an audience sees that, and when that is their understanding of what sword play is, when they go to a theater and they see something that doesn't match up to their expectation or doesn't match to their aesthetic, then that's when you start having critiques on the work because they are experts because of their exposure to the thing, whether or not that's historically how it operated or not.
Right. We do have a comment from the chat from Josh who said two things. He said, if the zombie apocalypse shows up, I may grab my longsword. And he also said, yes, the single take Daredevil hallway scene is so good.
The original, I haven't seen any of the new one, but the original Daredevil Netflix series was really good because about once or twice per season, they would do a single camera vantage point fight, right? So the camera would either be a stationary camera or it would be a single take that would follow them up the stairs and then back down the stairs and then through the elevator shaft. And it's like the fighting on that was incredible, but also the cinematography was great.
It was. Can confirm, yes. Yeah. I loved that. And Josh also said in the chat, thank you for validating my love for the Netflix Daredevil.
I have high hopes for the new one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that I'm in the middle of watching, the newest season too. And so is Josh. So do you find yourself watching series? Like, do you find yourself going like, okay, I have to see the new John Wick movie, or looking back at various movies to go, oh yeah, I want to go back and see that one fight in Princess Bride at the top of the cliff or whatever?
I mean, there's certain things like that. The Princess Bride fight. I mean, those are kind of iconic moments.
Yeah.
And I mean, even looking at the original Star Wars, Vader and Obi-Wan fight, Alec Guinness fight with Darth Vader, even those are iconic, but not good. So
That
iconic
was what I
doesn't
was wondering.
necessarily have to mean good. But then you can go back to some of the old swashbuckling movies, watch Danny Kaye work and Basil Rathbone, and look at those, and you're watching brilliant swordplay. So, I mean, iconic and good don't necessarily have to be the same thing. So I do go back and look at some of that, not necessarily for inspiration, but just because that's home, that's home base. That's
Yeah.
where you're trying to like build the things from. I will say for research, I just did a production of not a modern adaptation, a stage adaptation of Dial M for Murder.
Okay.
So
Ooh,
it's taking
okay.
the original Hitchcock and pulling it forward. So I did go back and look at the original because there's a moment where she's on the phone with her husband and the killer comes out to strangle her. So I was looking for iconic moments from that original Hitchcock fight that could serve as touchstone moments for an audience.
Mm,
They might have seen that before, and we're not trying to recreate the fight moment for moment, but we are trying to find very specific things that recreate a feeling from the old Hitchcock
sure.
moment. The kind of master of suspense in those moments. The original Psycho shower stab wasn't actually scary or good fighting at all. It was the buildup to the thing. Yeah, so trying to hit some of those iconic moments, those can absolutely help the storytelling without having to be. I was going to say executed well, but that's not it. Like it, without faithfully executing the original. We're not copying the choreography,
Yeah.
paying homage to.
Right. That's something I'm seeing a lot of remakes of films do, where they're like you said, touchstone moments where they're still telling the story in their own way, but they're nodding to these things.
You see
Which,
that a lot in theater too, especially in
yeah.
musicals.
Okay.
Like if you're doing West Side Story and you don't have a nod to the
Yeah.
snapping as they're walking forward, you're doing it wrong. If you're doing Chicago and you're not paying homage to the dance of that, if you're not like there's something off there. So I think fight choreography is a lot of the same thing where we can pay homage and give a little nod to those that came before without stealing their work.
Right.
Okay, that's an interesting thought. There's a lot of discussion around protecting someone's intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious when it comes to fight choreography or when it comes to certain motions on stage, at what point does it become something that you can either, and I'm going to use the wrong terminology, so please help me out, but copyright or trademark that specific work to protect it, and when can you then use it to like maybe build upon in some sort of way?
You have to be really careful about the contract that you sign.
Okay.
So if you don't make if you don't claim that as your own intellectual property, if you don't consider the concessions that need to be in place or talk to the theater about the possibility of that, then by default you lose it once you walk away from the thing. So it is something that you absolutely uh, have to be conscious of, and you want to be able to make sure that your work stays your work rather than becomes something that is open for people to wholesale steal.
And maybe a little bit lighter of a question. Um, when when you go to a production, be it a musical, be it a play, whatever, do you ever find yourself looking at the stage combat that's happening or the intimacy that's happening on stage and start to critique it in your head, like
Oh yeah.
it takes you out of the moment.
Like, how can you not, right?
Yeah, that's I talk to my students about that a lot. Like we all initially got into theater because we loved it. It was this wonderful thing that we really enjoyed and had fun doing. And then you go and study it, right? And you in studying it, you find out all of the things about it, all of the warts, all of the really awful things about it, and you find the stuff that exists so that you can't really love it in the same way ever again. But the hope is that in the study of that thing, you find brand new ways to love it. And that's that is an inescapable part of being a theater artist is there are very rare moments where I can turn my brain off and just watch a show. And it's not a critical thing, or I'm not nitpicking or being the what are their names? The two Muppets from the critic Muppets.
Um,
Oh,
Waldorf.
Statler and Waldorf.
Yes,
Statler and Waldorf.
Pittman and
Yeah.
Waldorf. I'm not necessarily sitting up there trying to heckle or think of how I can poo-poo people's work, but there's moments that I key in on, whether it's as a stage combat professional or I'm a director by training, so there are moments where if I see something where I don't think the story was delivered in such a way that maximized the effect of something, I can't not think about that moment.
That was really well said. Very professionally said. I sit and watch. I'll sit and watch a movie or TV show with Josh, and it throughout the show, invariably and without fail, he's like, "Oh, and he can name the model of knife or gun that it is. Doesn't matter. Every single time, he's like, "Oh, that's a blah 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 from 19 whatever," and it was used by the Germans, and it was blah blah blah, and he like knows all of that. And the whole time I'm sitting here going, "Are you watching the show though? Are you?"
Well, and imagine how much that would destroy him if it was used inappropriately, or if it
Oh,
was,
right. He
if
does
it
all
was somehow out of place, and it makes a difference. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's gotten to where there are times when we're watching like something that's clearly fantasy, like Star Wars or Star Trek or something like that. And I'll say, "What kind of gun is that?" Because they're made up, Because then I don't know, I poke fun at him, but it's the same with us, Trey. When we're like, we're both into costuming, so we'll watch like a red carpet event or some movie with costuming in it, or even a theater production where we're like, "Oh yeah, they're like a century off on that one," or we can sit and pick out the thing. Oh no, women would not have had pockets, things like that.
Well,
So it's relatable.
You mentioned that I recall a meme for the Star Wars 7, 8, and 9, and I think it was a promotional photo shot where Rey was holding a lightsaber, and the lightsaber had a Phillips head screw on it.
Oh,
Oh yes.
So regardless of the fact that it was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, they still used Phillips head screws. So something like that it can change the way that we receive it. And I think our job is to try and minimize that as much as possible, so that hopefully if our audience is thinking about that, well, not hopefully, if they are thinking about that, I don't know that we've done our job so well.
yeah, we're in the age of like internet sleuths though. So it's hard to avoid.
Yeah.
There are people who are going to sit and take these still images, and they can screenshot now, so like there's the scrutiny that happens because that's what people can do. So
Right. It's a little easier to slide some by in live theater because it happens in front of you and then it's gone.
Yes, much like this show.
Oh, what?
I was thinking of the times that you've just burst into song, Trey.
Oh yes. Let's not bring those up.
No pressure. Josh said, Han Solo's blaster was based off of a broom-handled Mauser. Oh, never mind. See?
I love this so much.
Do you have any like dream projects?
I really want to do a Peter Pan.
Oh yeah,
Ooh,
that would
okay.
be fun.
That's been, I mean, really since grad school for directing, that's been a thing that I'm interested in. I really enjoy that myth, not the Disney-fied version of it, but if you go back and look at the original, um, uh, the novel from novel to play, uh, I don't know that Pan's a hero, and that's, I think, a thing that I'm really interested in taking a look at is how we receive that story versus how the author really intended that story, and what it really means about growing up. And then when you look at the history of all of that, I mean, that is just a horrifically sad and depressing story about the gentleman that was the inspiration for Peter Pan. It was
Mhm.
just an awful life that gentleman had to live, and I think we gloss over a lot of what that story was and is with the Disney version of the thing, and I'm less interested in that and more interested in the original text.
Well, that would be very interesting. I hope you get to do something like that.
It's got to be the right place, got to be
Yeah.
the right moment.
I, I'm very intrigued by that because I have ingested so much bad television in my
Haven't
lifetime.
we all?
And I say this lovingly because I watched the show back in the day, and then now it's become a kind of a guilty pleasure to go revisit. But Peter Pan was actually the bad guy in one of the seasons of Once Upon a Time.
Mhm.
And it was a unique take on it. They kind of explored a little bit of what you're talking about, that he wasn't necessarily the hero. So
Yeah.
I would be intrigued.
Yeah, there's a lot in the book in the original. I don't even know if I still have the script up here. I don't think I do. I don't. Uh, oh yeah, I do. The Barry novel, the J.M. Barry novel. Uh, there's a lot of stuff in there of once he kills Hook, he forgets about him almost immediately. Lost boys that had the audacity to grow up aren't part of his troop anymore. And I
Mhm.
think you could probably make the connection that once they grow up and they have no place with Pan, they become pirates. Because what else are they going to do in Neverland? So there's the thing. The idea that he's kind of created all of this, that he is the creator of this Neverland, and he creates this kind of awful playground for all of these people to kind of dance on his puppet strings. It's definitely not the uh, fairy dust Disney version of
Yeah.
the thing.
A lot of things like that. Like even our conceptions of what we think of as the stories of Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, all of those have incredibly tragic backstories to them that just get glossed over, a little Disney magic, and then, oh, voila, they're ingestible.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, for our sensibilities, they don't make very good bedtime stories, and that's not initially what they were intended to be. They were supposed to teach valuable lessons that happened when you decided to go wandering by yourself in the woods. And there's all sorts of horrible things that can happen. So don't do that. And that doesn't make for as compelling of a Disney story.
Very true.
No. It's funny how a lot of our storytelling involves those fears. Like we introduce fear to keep people from doing things, like children usually, but it's something Laura Packer talked about on the show a while back as well.
No. Well, I mean, if you can hone in on basic human fear or things that bring in, such exceptional roots of joy, those sort of emotions are really compelling things to build stories on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now you're doing some teaching.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I teach. I'm the movement specialist at the University of Arkansas. So I work with the graduate and undergraduate students using the body as a tool for communication. So being able to kind of train the actors that they are always in charge of what they are doing on stage, and as such, they get to ultimately control how they are received by the audience. And we do a lot for voice. We do a lot for training how people can speak and how they can sing, and then we tend to spend less time on the body as a tool for communication because you just walk on stage with it. It's the one that you have, and we don't realize how much in daily life we take visual cues from people's posture, how they move through the space, the speed at which they move through the space, what part of their body they're leading with. All of these things help establish a character and can be a tool for an actor to use to help tell that story. And we just don't tend to think about it as much.
Josh, question for you: what part of Emily's body does she lead with whenever she walks?
I don't
And-
like that question. That's weird.
no.
It's clearly my elbows. Just
And
walking
same-
around like this.
I mean, same question for you. What part of Josh's body does he lead with?
Also his elbows. This is why we're together. Just we walk around like this. Yeah. It's not awkward at all.
No.
You usually don't run into it. No, I have nowhere good to go. Elbows are always up, he said.
Well,
elbows up.
Better the elbows hit the wall than the face. So yeah.
Yeah.
I will.
go ahead, Trey.
I will be honest, and I will say that I lead with my head quite a bit.
Do you?
And there's somewhat of a psychological reason behind that, and it's that I'm always thinking about something, and so my thoughts are always like down on the floor, so I tend to like lean forward a little bit, and so I'm constantly leading with my forehead.
Do you have very clean floors as a side effect of that?
No, are you kidding? My floors are chaos.
I wondered that too because I actually do the same. I believe I do the same thing. I could be wrong. And I always notice a dirty floor. And is it because I'm looking down at the floor? And I think it might be. And I don't like that now that I'm saying it out loud. David's nodding.
Everybody, every human being has habits, right? That they carry with them. I'm 6'4", so as I am 6'4", I slouch a lot, and I do that in an attempt to make myself smaller because big people always tend to try and like make themselves smaller and take up less space. But I also do that to try and not have people crane their necks to look up at me. Until I had a teacher tell me that I'm literally talking down to everyone.
Oh, okay.
Yikes, that'll change things.
Yeah.
Huh?
So in that moment when I heard that, I went, oh my God, like I'm condescending everyone on stage. And not only that, but it makes for a really bad picture. So I'm slouching on stage. I'm talking down to them rather than having them elevate and talk up to me. And I make a really, like I'm cutting a really unimposing figure by doing so. So it was probably the best note that I ever got was, stop talking down to people on stage. And that kind of opened up my awareness of slouching and having those moments on stage. But everybody has a habit, and the idea of a lot of the movement training is being able to identify what those habits are, because if you can acknowledge that you have that thing, you can control it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there are things about people that they don't even realize they do, so you can point those out.
Yeah, that makes for a really awkward class.
I bet. Yeah. Today is awkward day.
Yeah.
There was a theater class that I did where all we did was walk around in a circle. The rest of the class sat in a circle surrounding one person as they just walked around the room. The teacher selected one person to follow them and to copy all of their characteristics as they were walking. So, how they walked, the speed at which they walked, just everything. And at some point, the original person had to step back out and watch themselves, in air quotes, continue to walk, and they get to see that whole experience.
Is that one way to do it? Is that how you do it?
No, I don't. That can be a valid tool though, as long as it's framed right. Yeah, because when you step out, you're still watching someone's interpretation of what it is that you're
True.
doing. So like,
And they could
Yeah.
exaggerate.
yeah, and if you're looking at that going, oh my God, that's what I do, it can't be a direct one-to-one, right? Like you have to acknowledge that that is filtered through another artist's mind, right? And then
Yeah.
their eyes. So like they are interpreting what it is, and they don't possess the same sort of biomechanical structure as you do. So they are incapable of being able to replicate the movement that the exact way that you do it. But it is kind of helpful for big picture things in terms of, oh, I didn't realize that I led with my forehead, or I didn't realize that like I slouched the entire time, or
Mhm.
that I guess I've shuffled so much through my entire life. I don't realize that when I'm walking, I make that
Oh yeah.
sound. And those things can be interesting. I think it's also just compelling to film yourself.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's got a camera in their pocket that's a pretty high quality camera now too. So if you wonder if you are making any sort of physical choices, or if you have a habit, film yourself walking around and you will clearly be able to see that you do.
That's a good tip. And that's one that doesn't necessarily have to embarrass you in front of other people.
I do see the benefit, or the performance side of something like that, though, just in terms of one, you can find inspiration in a lot of different areas, and that when people are recreating something like that, it is still an interpretation of the original rather than a copy. You're not
Yeah.
becoming this other person by walking. And I think that can be a valid exercise if it's framed well, and not just like be them, go.
Oh, God. That's so
That's
intense.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure, especially for an 18 to 22-year-old performer to take themselves.
Yeah, there's another theater game, or not game, but another theater experience I want to talk about maybe after the podcast, and get your thoughts on it. I had a really great experience with it looking back on it, but in the moment was one of the most horrifying things.
Yeah.
Just of what happened. Um, I am really curious for you, David. Um, you have so much knowledge, and the way that you frame things is so incredible. When you get those actors that come in to your studio, to your classes, what advice do you typically throw out to them first?
I probably talk at them way too much. I probably give them way too much advice. Um, I think the big thing that I've been trying to push for is not necessarily um, anything new, but for a performer to uh, live truthfully in that particular moment, right? So to respond as a human being might respond given any sort of incoming stimuli, and that is every single moment that they have on stage. So the idea of someone just walking into a room, delivering their line, "Good my lord, the queen is dead," and then just standing there doing nothing the entire time. Uh, that's not living truthfully in that moment, right? Like you came into that room to fundamentally try and change the person that you are talking to. And if you give them that, and if they are actively trying to fundamentally change the other, then acting's easy because you're actively doing something the entire time. So I think that's, rather than some big sort of like cat hanging on a ledge poster moment that I try and hand the students is that they need to be working the entire time, and they need to be actively engaged in the moments that they are working with another on stage.
That is really solid advice.
Yeah.
I think my last question for you before we wrap up tonight has nothing to do with theater, has nothing to do with fight choreography, but it's a question that we like to ask our guests because we get a really great variety of answers. You are sitting down to lunch with anyone in the world, alive or dead. Who is sitting on the other side of that table?
Oh man, that's a great question. Kurt Cobain or Robin Williams?
Oh,
Mm,
solid choices. Why?
good
Um,
one.
I think because of growing up, because of where I was, like I don't know what I am. I was born in 1980, so depending on where you look, I'm either Gen X or a millennial or the in between the two. So depending on what chart you're looking at, like I don't know what I am. Uh, and I had two older brothers, one who was 10 years older and 8 years older than I was. So for me, uh, my movie tastes, my music, like that was always inspired by them because it was that
Mhm.
was what was playing on the radio because I was certainly not making the choices. I didn't get to touch the radio dial. Uh, so along comes grunge at a point where I am like just about old enough to formulate my own decisions and like choices that have been, or I'm making my own specific choices. And Nirvana hit at a time where that wasn't my brother's, that was mine, and I got to uh, look at a different type of music that felt right, one for the time period, but also it felt like it was in direct opposition to kind of the hair metal that my brothers had been listening to and that the country that my parents were listening to. And then to be able to watch the videos on MTV and realize that, I mean, you look at the Foo Fighters videos that Dave Grohl kind of does this really fun ridiculousness in the videos, and that all came from Nirvana. So watching these people look like they were having a great deal of fun in the videos and just absolutely had no regard for the system in any way, shape, or form, and were actively interested in just tearing it down. That was great for 12 to 13 year old me. Uh, and Robin Williams is I mean, as far as an iconic performance person, uh, that's that's just about as iconic as I can possibly think of. I remember first seeing him in Mork and Mindy when I was a kid, and thinking that was about the funniest TV show that had ever existed. And then just kind of following his career as he went from someone that was widely regarded as just a comedian to doing really dramatic and really serious work, and demonstrating a huge range along the way. So I think those two stand out for me.
Yeah, I'd have lunch with Robin Williams just to bring him back for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, really awesome choices, though.
Seriously. Well, David, I this hour has flown by, and it is so clear that you have so many wonderful takes on theater, on life, and just really the art of storytelling. I want to make sure that our listening audience can stay in touch with you with the work that you're doing and any upcoming projects that you have. Where can our listening audience find more of you?
Really, if they go to the University of Arkansas Theater website, I'm there, and then I have an email address that they can respond to there. I just found out that my website is not up and working. Usually, it's davidreed-director.com, but apparently, don't go there because apparently it's not working. So I need to do some searching into why that is. And then, yeah, it really is just kind of email.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, David, thank you so much for being on tonight. And as we close this episode out, you can find more content, behind the scenes content, and other little goodies on our Patreon. Search for The Mod ROM on Patreon. You can also search our website for previous episodes or for links to other content. That is themodrom.com. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.